My name's Amy. I'm the current chair of the pharmacy professional community, and we are quite excited for our first town hall since the annual meeting. This is a time for the pharmacy community to come together. So what we have is a couple of slides to share with everyone, which I'll do momentarily. And then we do want to use the time to discuss, brainstorm, just share ideas, and kind of figure out how we want things to progress, do differently, maybe communicate better going forward. So,
if I can
and go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I didn't introduce you.
Sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt. No, I was just going to say that this will be posted on YouTube, and we've been getting really good engagement after the fact when people can watch it at their leisure. So regardless of the number of people who are here now, this will be a useful resource for everyone in the community.
Thank you. Yes, I know I've had a couple people say they weren't able to attend and they were looking forward to the recorded session. So, okay. I will screen share, or give me a second, I'll attempt to screen share. Let me just adjust this really quick. Promise there's a whole slide deck here. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay, so basically what our meeting today is our pharmacy professional community, where we call ourselves the PC town hall. We have another one coming up in February of next year. So we give a warm welcome to the group. We are a very fun group. We work very hard. The pharmacists, I think, in ISHLT, we enjoy what we do. We enjoy the contributions that we're able to make. And I think at the same time, we have a lot of fun together. And for me personally, it's been really rewarding to get to know everybody in the pharmacy group, and then just meet new people along the way. So that's been really, it's been a really enjoyable process for me. So what we'll do through today's town hall is I'd like to spend a few moments going over the organizational structure. And then we'll go briefly over what the different interdisciplinary networks are and how they're organized, as well as our own pharmacy professional community. And then who the representatives are, and try to give an explanation to everyone so that there's a clear understanding of how these organizational interactions, collaborations work. I'm actually gonna not just show you a slide of Connect, but I actually am going to share my screen and demonstrate a little bit of what the Connect, ISHLT Connect site looks like, and then kind of where to navigate and how to find the pharmacy community on there. We'll briefly discuss the new JHLT Open Journal that is newly available for individuals to submit to, as well as for those who might be interested in becoming more involved with ISHLT, becoming more involved with the professional community. We'll go over some ways in which that can happen. This is very informal, so please feel free to raise your hands or just speak up. Sometimes I can't see everybody in the screen gallery view, so just feel free to even just interrupt as we go through slides, and if you have questions on anything. So this is the overall structure of the ISHLT organization. And so at the core, we have the board, which is represented by the blue highlighted circle here. And so they're really the ones who are at the helm of the leadership, who are helping run the organization, making key strategic decisions, engaging members to ensure that the voices are heard, and that as ultimately we can provide guidance to our transplant communities. Then we have a leadership advisory forum, which consists of individuals who serve in a more leadership advisory capacity, liaisons to different professional groups, INDs, able to help provide insight and guidance as to what would be necessary from a more leadership perspective. And then we have different committees. So there's on the left side here, you have the research committee. There's a publications committee. There's an early career and trainee committee, and there's an education committee. And each of these 4 committees is tasked with a different responsibility for helping advance the overarching goals of the organization. And these are comprised of different individuals who then assist with disseminating and carrying out the different functions that, again, ultimately lead to outcomes, production, networking, education materials provided for the transplant community at large. Then outside of that, we have the different INDs, so the interdisciplinary networks. There's an advanced heart failure and transplant IND. There's a pulmonary vasculature disease IND. There's an advanced lung failure and transplant IND. And then there's a mechanical circulatory support IND. And so within each of these INDs, so this is where members do have the ability to work with the INDs. There are representatives on all of the IND steering committees. They're from the different communities, professional communities, which you can see here. We have cardiology, infectious disease, nursing and allied health, pulmonology, research and immunology, anesthesia, critical care, pediatrics. Here's us, pharmacy, and then cardiothoracic surgery and pathology. And so the idea is that, we have the individuals within each practice area. So for us within pharmacy, but then we have pharmacists who serve and sit on the mechanical circulatory support, advanced heart failure, pulmonary vasculature, advanced lung failure, interdisciplinary networks. And we also have representation on the early career and trainee council. We have individuals representing the leadership advisory forum and up to the board level. And so the idea is that each of these different professional communities can work in and of themselves to help identify needs. And then those practice areas, clinical needs, patient care topics, then can get relayed to the appropriate IND. And so that's where a lot of the symposiums, which we'll talk about just a little bit, and as a way to get involved. But at our annual meeting every year, a lot of the topics are then built into targeting these different professional communities and interdisciplinary networks that are listed here. So it can look a little bit overwhelming, but when you really take it in and you look at the core and then you build outwards and you see the impact that it can have, I think, in both directions, it becomes less confusing and overwhelming. And so I've mentioned previously on the slide, so at the periphery, you have your professional communities, but then there's 4 interdisciplinary network steering committees, and these are listed here of advanced heart failure and transplantation, advanced lung failure and transplantation, the mechanical circulatory support, and the pulmonary vasculature disease steering committees. And so each of these different IDNs is made up of members from each of the professional communities. And we'll show an example of that. But for an example, I sit on the pulmonary vasculature disease steering committee, and we have representatives on mechanical circulatory support and the others. And so that's how each of the different steering committees is they essentially have one member from each of the professional communities that sits on their steering committee. And then you have essentially a interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary representation for these core committees that exist within the society. And so I've listed here the representatives that we have currently for our IDNs. We have Haifa, who's on the advanced heart failure. We have Faye, who's on the advanced lung failure, myself, who's serving on the pulmonary vasculature disease, and then Amanda, who's on the mechanical circulatory support IDN as a representative. And when I go to connect in a little bit, I can pull up the IDNs and you can see how each of the professional communities has a different representative on each of these different IDNs. So within our pharmacy specific professional community, so if you think back to the slide with the organizational chart, and we're in the lower left-hand corner, pharmacy, we have a leadership committee ourselves. And so that's made up of the 4 IDN representatives, plus we have a representative to the early career and trainee committee. And right now we're fortunate to have Patricia, who's actually our pharmacy representative to the Leadership Advisory Forum as well. So that's a wonderful opportunity that we have this year as a pharmacy professional community through her leadership on that forum. And to just orient you to who we are, this is the pharmacy community representatives. And so listed underneath, I mentioned earlier how we each are representatives to a different IDN, myself being the representative to the PVD, and Haifa to the advanced heart failure, Faye, Amanda, and Tara. And then I do want to point out as well the Leadership Advisory Forum, which is Patricia. And Patricia, I don't know, do you want to say a few words about your role on the Leadership Advisory Forum?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that now, Amy, because like yourself at the start, I was sort of confused and overwhelmed by the organizational structure, but in Leadership Advisory Forum, I really got to see how it fits together. It's a way for the membership to keep the board up to date with developments, to help them horizon scan. So it's a way for me to represent pharmacy at board level. It's a chance for me to advocate to the board for pharmacy and for our interests. And I'm really happy to hear from any of you. You have my email address will be at the end of the slides. I'm really happy to hear from any of you about ideas and about information that the board should be aware of. But I always try to represent pharmacy, because we're very good at what we do.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we move forward with the slides? I just want to make sure there's no questions to date yet. Okay. So the fun ISHLT Connect. I'm going to stop sharing so I can reshare my actual desktop for you guys. But ISHLT Connect is really where all of the communication happens. We do post things on social media, but usually there's a link to the Connect page, or we say go to our pharmacy professional community. So I'm going to do just a quick demonstration of what the ISHLT Connect is like. And let me just share my new screen. All right, so how do you get on to share my whole screen? So how do you even get to ISHLT Connect? So you go to ishlt.org first, and that's the best way to get to it. And then up here in the top corner, there's a little hyperlink to the ISHLT Connect site. There's obviously all these different ways you can get into it. And I'm actually going to show you logging in. And if you don't have an account, which you all should have accounts, you can create one. So it automatically logs me in. And what you have here is there's the home aspect, and then we have the different communities. And so you can actually personalize this feature here to select which communities you want to be your own. And so example here, you can communities to which you belong. You can do all, you can do the ones that you can join, and you can control all this based off of your profile. And so you can see discussions, there's libraries, you can look at all the members in there, but these are all the different communities. And this is where essentially all of the discussions happen, okay? So for example, if we go into our pharmacy professional community, which you can see 184 of us, here is where we post all of our discussions. And so when you see a posting on the social media about an upcoming town hall, about something that requires a link, this is where you'll find it, is within this discussion board. The other thing is that sometimes we post questions about how to manage patients. You can see here things about rejection, fungal prophylaxis, SLG2 management before transplant. And it's a nice way for us as pharmacists to communicate with each other. In addition, there's a library section, which the files decided to be a little bit slow at loading, but this is where we post copies of slides, recordings, if there's a webinar recording, other things that we have done. You can see our past town halls, our pharmacy virtual symposium that we had, and other things that you can access to be available to the group. And then if you want to see who your members are, within your actual community, there's a member tab as well. And you're actually able to send them a message through ISHLT Connect. They'll get notified via their email that they have a message waiting, and their messages would show up here. You can see here, I have actually 12 messages under the inbox. So that's the communities page is the most important way for you to have information from the pharmacy professional community, both from the leadership group, but also from ISHLT, because they post things there. Within ISHLT Connect, there's also an events tab. And so we post all the upcoming, well, we don't, but our staff does a fantastic job at posting all of the upcoming webinars that are happening. As well, you can find in the actual directory. This is great. So member directory will be you'll basically have this tab open all the time if you're involved in planning symposiums. Because you can search anybody's name, first, last name, company name, you can search part of it. So you could search my last name, for example, and it would actually pull me up, as long as they're searchable, as my email address, my phone number, and where I work, and if I have any type of involvement. And so you can actually then look them up further and see what exactly they have about them, okay? The thing that this is useful for is when you're planning symposiums, the speakers that you recommend have to be members of ISHLT, and sometimes it's really hard to find speakers. And so if you see an article that was published, you can actually search the author's names on that article that maybe gave you the idea for your symposium proposal, and you can see if they're ISHLT members, because that's the recommended format is that the speakers at the conference are members, but it's also a way just to look each other up. So this is a great feature. The directory, I have it open, especially during symposium submission. And then there's a job board, which is if you're interested in looking for jobs, or you know someone who's looking for a job, they post up recent positions that are available, and it's really anyone who has the ability to have different job postings that would be within the ISHLT professional community. So it can be anyone can post that, and they give some descriptions about that and how they remain visible for 30 days. So, and then if you want to browse blogs, library entries, you can do that as well. But definitely get to know the communities. If you need help with learning more about the communities, which ones to be a part of, there's some great discussions that happen. And then knowing your member directory. The pharmacy community, though, is going to be your one-stop shop for things that we're sharing or trying to disseminate, because we don't do it via a listserv, we don't do it via Facebook, we don't do it via Twitter. We do sometimes share the postings that have happened, but where you're going to actually get the meat of the information and the links to actually attend is going to be through this pharmacy community page. So I'm going to stop sharing. Does anybody have questions on navigating ISHLT Connect? Because I know it took me a bit of time to figure out, and I'm still learning stuff.
That was wonderful, Amy. Thank you so much. That was really good. I've used the directory a lot, but the other navigational things that you went over were nice.
Yeah, I feel like I live on the directory most of the time.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about the library.
It's quite helpful. Yeah. If you're just needing to browse through stuff and it goes back a ways. So the information is quite useful. Okay, then I'm going to do the honors of screen sharing my slides again. Thank you for your patience with my technology. Okay. All right, so ISHLT Connect. I'm pretty sure that I actually hyperlinked the link to it on the slide deck. So when we have the PDF, I'll just make sure that when we post that, we just note that a lot of these sites are hyperlinked in. Ease of access. Okay. I went through how to navigate it. You can see here, I actually put it straight to this is the homepage for ISHLT Connect, and there you can see a screenshot of where we went to. We did the live version because if you're like me, I have to see it, do it to understand it. Okay, so timelines. This slide looks overwhelming, but I don't want people to be overwhelmed by it. The purpose of this is to actually walk through on a month-by-month basis the big overarching activities that are happening across this society. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important because I think it actually allows you to know what's going on, where and what opportunities exist for you to even attend or be involved in, and then also keeps us on our toes because May and June always come too quickly and the meeting always comes too quickly, and it seems like the year flies between all of the months. So I guess you could call it the fiscal year for the society starts in May, and that is because our annual meeting is in April, and that's kind of what closes out the year. And so May is a great time. We have all of the newly elected leader terms to the PCs. Anyone who's in a leadership position is technically when their new term begins. And this is when we start sending out a call for symposium ideas. We usually also do an additional call to the pharmacy community to see, make sure we have your contact information. And we also ask if you would be interested to submit or to be considered a speaker or abstract reviewer for the upcoming year. And the reason we do that is because we want to know of our list of people, as each of us within the community is planning symposiums, or we're working with IDNs to plan symposiums. We can look back at this Excel sheet that we collect data on from our community members and say, hey, I have a pharmacist who would be a really good individual for that talk, or we can encourage people to get involved. But that's really how we know that you would want to be involved, is when we also send out a call for member engagement. So between May and June, it's really the focus of everything is just symposium proposals. And I know this year we had a record number of well over 150 some proposals submitted. And our pharmacy community PC, we actually held weekly what we called office hours to help members who were interested, or we talked amongst ourselves as we were planning symposium proposals to get feedback on what we were submitting, because there's a lot of symposiums that are submitted. And you want to have as much feedback as possible to make it very generalizable, very gender, including different generations, different different individuals from around the world, and other things like that. And so they're also reviewed by the IDNs. The IDNs host office hours as well. And so it's a great opportunity as we work through things to be able to collaborate on all of that. Oh, thank you, Juliet. Juliet put the link in the chat box to connect if anyone's interested. And then in July, after symposiums are due, they're always due like the very last week of June. And so we're all, doing things to the very end usually. And it's a very exciting time. There's a lot of great collaboration. By attending some of these PCs and IDN office hours, you actually can meet a lot of great individuals who are probably trying to figure out the same thing around the world. So it's a wonderful time to also network and share ideas and collaborate. July is when there's starts to be town halls, webinars. We do a call. You'll see an email that goes out with a call for, or a posting that goes out with the call for abstract reviewers for the annual meeting. And so that's when you have the opportunity to sign up to review abstracts. That is a great way to get involved if you're newer to ISHLT, being an abstract reviewer. It's a great way to at least get that experience down and start to learn what the society is about. And then in August, the annual meeting abstract opens, and this is the submission site for individuals to submit their actual research abstract, and this is open through mid-October. This year, it's October 17th. And it's also when we do a call for nominations to the PC and IDN leadership committees, because there'll be individuals after serving their years of commitment, they would rotate off, and so we need new individuals to fill their shoes. Yes, thank you, Patricia. That is so true. That is how I actually got involved with ISHLT. Just to bounce off of that comment, went to my first ISHLT in 2019, and I got very excited because it was probably the best meeting I had at that time been to. It's still one of the best meetings that I go to. I look forward to it every year. But I was like, well, how do I get involved? And someone said, well, submit symposiums. And so that's what I did. I submitted a bunch of symposiums. And that was going into COVID. So my first actual couple of years of involvement with ISHLT was actually all virtual. And I'll never forget, I didn't meet even like Tara or some of the individuals on this call until the meeting a year ago in 2022. And we actually met in person for the first time, but we felt like we knew each other for years. It was great. So that's just to bounce off of what Patricia commented in the chat box. So where we're at right now is in September, where we're starting to have the IDNs host webinars. There will be a pharmacy webinar. Ours is in January. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And then in October, it gets busy again because there's the symposium proposals that have been accepted. The submitters are notified whether a part of it was accepted, all of it. It was merged with another symposium, and what happened to your actual submission. So that's kind of a nice thing because you do get some feedback. We have the meeting deadline, usually the mid of October. This year is October 17th. And then that's when all the abstract reviews get started. There's another webinar. And then we have our representative elections for IDNs. And then December begins the actual release of the program planning committee. Abstracts, those who have submitted abstracts are notified of their submissions. And yes, Juliet is including volunteer bodies that will be included in the call next week for volunteers. So be on the lookout. If you are interested in getting involved, Juliet will be sending out a call for volunteers coming up. Thank you, Juliet. And then January, we have continued webinars. February is where the chairs of the professional communities and the IDNs are selected. Webinars continue. We continue to send out, we do a survey for our members in February. That's when we will encourage you all to fill out that survey. And then March and April are a combination of annual meeting prep and the annual meeting, because there's a lot that goes into hosting a conference that's international, serves thousands and thousands of people, as well as multiple different professional communities, clinical service lines, if you want to think about it that way, and ensuring that the meeting is a success, not only from the symposiums, but the additional IDN meetings that happen, the abstract sessions, all of the sponsors in the exhibit hall. It's quite a impressive feat, and it's pulled off extremely well every year. So that just gives everyone a timeline and when to kind of be on the lookout for involvement with either communities, committees, abstract reviews, program planning, submission things, filling out surveys, participating in our webinar, maybe giving ideas, helping maybe even come up with the topic. And so don't feel like also if you missed maybe one of the months and maybe an opportunity to apply to something, it's not a missed opportunity in any ways. Just be thinking about it for things going forward, because you can keep that on your radar and be mindful of when those cycles come around again, because it will. Okay. And then I do want to give a quick shout out. I think most people have probably become familiar that there's a new journal. So it's the JHLT Open. And it's actually accepting submissions with article processing fees charges if they're submitted before December 31st of this year. And so I know that our pharmacy community has been working on a few submissions, but we're also looking for ideas for a themed issue. So I want to pause. And I know we might have a quiet group, but if anybody has any ideas for what they think would be a really interesting themed issue that could incorporate other disciplines or be more pharmacy focused, that would people would find of interest. So does anybody want to put in the chat box or speak up any ideas that they may or may not have?
One idea that was brought up actually at my MCS meeting was about ERAS, or extended recovery after surgery, and essentially that's got a lot of pharmacy involvement in it with kind of avoiding opioids. And if anybody has any ideas on that, we can definitely join in on that symposia, or sorry, not symposia, but you know, I can push for that at my MCS meeting.
Do you think that would be like a multidisciplinary themed type of a issue then?
Yeah, because it's got some like nutrition involved in it. It's got a lot of surgery, anesthesia. Ooh, Patricia mentioned in the chat that would be a good proposal for a document to S&G. Well, I think that's a great point. So anyway, that's yeah, I think it'd be super interdisciplinary.
So we would have, yeah, I think that's a good, and I think, believe it or not, we could also, this is the ped side of me coming out because I'm primarily pediatrics. There's a lot to do. We could actually have for each of those, we could even have like a peds focus. Like, well, what do you do in peds? Because there's stuff that you do in adults that we just don't do in kids. There's probably stuff we do in kids that we don't do in adults. But we do, I know in kids at least, try to facilitate that. I guess that we call it like optimizing their time after surgery. So I don't know, do you think we should post something on Connect about this just to see if we can get any additional thoughts from the community? Okay. Amanda, do you want to post that on our Connect page maybe and just see what people might be interested in?
Yeah, I'll do some crowdsourcing.
Yeah, and then we might be able to, if we do decide something, we should probably, you know, finalize it by the end of this month, I think, as a community. And then if there's people on the call or people who listen to this recording, look for Amanda's post on Connect. And if you'd be interested in contributing or collaborating, just comment on it and we can get an idea of if anybody would be even interested in working as a pharmacy community with some other disciplines to put together a theme journal. Or issue, excuse me. Okay. So opportunities for involvement. I think that's a wonderful segue into this. I talked a little bit about the survey that we send out. So just do make sure you look for it and fill it out. If you haven't seen it, reach out to one of us. I have our emails on the last slide for everybody. But again, I mentioned earlier that the names on this survey is what we rely heavily on when we are, as a pharmacy PC planning meeting symposiums. We share this with each other. We go back to our IDNs and we say, hey, I've got this pharmacist she works primarily in pulmonary vascular disease, or she's primarily adult, or she's peds. She would be a great speaker for this, and we can represent and incorporate our pharmacy community into these proposals that are being developed amongst physicians and other individuals. We are a small, but I would say very mighty group. And we definitely work very hard together to put together quality symposiums, but that also, I think, have pharmacy representation. And we find that to be very, very important because medications are such a huge part of the transplant community. But it does help us with finding things for the webinars as well. We'll use the list to say, oh, this person indicated they'd be interested in participating, or this is their practice area. Basically, it helps us find everything. If we need someone for something, we can use this to reach out. And the more people involved, the better, because I think the more perspectives we have, the more community we have, the more of a family that we have amongst RPC, I think the greater our impact can be to our patients and even the society. So I mentioned the abstract reviewer, so be on the lookout for that. That's usually sent out in the summer. Symposium submissions, those are done in May and June. And even if you've never done one before, don't let that turn you away from attempting to do one. You can certainly partner with a pharmacist who's done one before. We can help walk you through the process. We can share an example if you'd like as well. But if you have an idea, don't let it stop there. See if you can turn that idea into reality and ultimately a symposium submission. When the opportunity comes around for pharmacy leadership or even different committee volunteer leadership, these are opportunities as well for you to become more involved in the society if you're interested. There's a variety of opportunities outside of the IDNs and the PCs. There's opportunities to be involved with our standards and guidelines. As Patricia mentioned earlier, our leadership advisory forum. And then if you just want to help out, like posting stuff on Twitter and Facebook, that's always welcomed as well, because we usually have our ISHLT Connects post. Will like share something about it and say, please see the ISHLT Connect post. So if you see something being tweeted, retweet it. If you see something being shared, or if you want to help with posting stuff, just let us know. It's pretty easy to do. And I think it's a nice way to also learn about what's going on within the PC. Okay, so submitting an abstract, since this is probably the next big deadline upon us, there's not a specific pharmacy category to submit to for the annual meeting. So you'll have to choose an IADN and then use the most suitable category. So for example, if it's a topic on heart failure or ECMO, then maybe you would look at the heart failure, advanced heart failure IDN, or you may look at the mechanical circulatory support. The lung IDN is expecting the pharmacy abstracts to be submitted to the lung immunosuppression and desensitization categories. And I think, Faye, did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, thanks, Emmy. Yeah, so just in the lung IDN, in previous years, there's been a sort of therapeutics area, which is where most of the pharmacy abstracts sort of fitted. So this year that didn't seem to exist. So I just reached out to the Symposium Planning Committee, and they suggested that this was the category that they were looking to have the majority of the pharmacy abstracts submitted to. But obviously there are other infectious diseases categories and things like that, so it doesn't really matter where you put it, but this was one where they really thought that would be most suitable for pharmacy abstracts.
Okay. Perfect. All right. And then for all abstracts, they're due October 17th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So if you don't have something in the works and you want to get involved, be thinking about, I'm sure we all have some data that we could dig up somewhere, and make sure those are in time. So really quickly, before we wrap up with our contact information, we do have a webinar coming up in January of this next year, which is hard to believe it's already going to be 2024. But we wanted to reach out to the group. We have not finalized the webinar topic yet, But I wanted to see if anybody had any ideas, thoughts, suggestions for what might be an interesting webinar. This does not have to just capture the pharmacy community. I know last year I was sending out our webinar invites to our cardiologists, and they actually came. It was really quite wonderful because they thought the topics were just so great. And so I think if we have a really interesting topic, we can divide amongst the members, see if we can identify people who would be interested in speaking. But I think it can be good for not only our community, but we can also maybe potentially have interest from outside professional communities. So I don't know, does anybody have any ideas thus far?
Maybe Amanda's ERAS idea wouldn't be a bad one, depending on
Yeah.
what gets.
Oh, yeah.
I think that they were thinking about it for their webinar, the MCS webinar. Sorry. I just posted it on ISHLT. So to kind of get the conversation going. But something else that I posted is about weight loss. There's a whole lot. I know I've been kind of on a kick, but there's been a whole lot of drugs that just came out on weight loss, and I feel like it's a hot topic. So it might be hot for a webinar, and we could probably include dietitians and maybe, I don't know, go with some kind of surgical strategies and include surgery in there to make it not solely pharmacy, or we could just stick to pharmacy because there's a whole bunch of new drugs. I don't know if and I don't have a lot of experience with them. I know that I would log into that, and it's kind of a hot topic, and you know, even my neighbors are asking about it.
Interesting.
Hey, Amanda, I think that's an excellent idea. We actually just met at my institution to talk about like bariatric surgery in our MCS patients and like how to do warfarin dosing because of their diet changes. So that could be like more of the surgical and medication perspective. And then we've had a couple patients with like gastroparesis on the new medication. So I think that'd be really interesting.
Cool. Thanks, Bailey.
I think the one caveat was, didn't you submit some of that to the annual meeting? So I guess I don't know if we'll know yet if that's been selected, but once we have that input from the committee, it would be helpful so we don't duplicate, hopefully.
Yeah, I won't know. I did submit a symposia. I didn't include gastric bypass though, so that's a great idea. We could maybe make a spin-off, and who knows if it'll be accepted, but I'm sure we could. I mean, the drugs are kind of the same, but perhaps some other topics around weight loss or yeah. It's tough because like I feel like that everyone wants an idea like around the same time. So you submit a symposia, and then you're like wrapping your brain for ideas for abstracts, and then you're wrapping your brain for ideas for webinars and JHLT Open, and you know, I feel like a lot of my ideas are a little bit the same.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I think in previous webinars we had a really great session from a pharmacist in Spain about their service. I wonder if there's another international pharmacy or pharmacist that would like to present on, you know, what something in their own country that might be a bit different than what sort of the US and UK and Australia do.
Don't want to put somebody on the thing at the moment, but we've got someone from lovely Norway on the call, so you never know, maybe we could gently ask him.
Love that idea.
I was thinking the same thing too, Faye, having like a highlight on a member that has a unique practice. You know, again, similar to what we did with the Spanish folks last year. And I think the other thing too we could consider is just if there's time, I think there might be, is if we just, when coming up with things for January, you could consider seeing what doesn't get taken by the programming committee. And then just kind of, make a mishmash of that. Sorry, my dog's ringing the bells.
Looks like we have Norway interest. This is great. Yeah, I think, and we could even, depending on as we finalize topics up, we could have, like some smaller mini. I think that's what we did the last webinar. And I think that was really interesting too, because we had a couple different types of topics that were presented. So we'll definitely, I think the country one is a definite go. And then as we finalize that program, symposium submissions, we can pull the community for webinar topics, and then we can see what other things come up. Amanda, did you already post something to connect, you said, for the JHLT?
I did.
Okay. We can do a second post. I can even do that unless somebody else wants to, about suggestions for webinar topics.
I've never edited a post. Let me see if I can edit it.
I don't think you can. Juliet might be able to confirm.
You can edit a post.
You can.
We're not Twitterizing this. Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, this is our contact information for the group. This is everyone listed here. So please feel free to reach out to us on either the Connect via the ISHLT Connect as we demo today. We can message people directly, or we can do it through email as well. Either works for all of us. So with that, I'm going to stop screen sharing, but I wanted to see if anybody had any additional thoughts, considerations, questions. Obviously, you can reach out to us, but I do thank you all for coming today. I know it's a commitment of your time, but hopefully we can disseminate some of this to our community and engage our members. So.
Amy, I know Tara posted in the chat, but the early career webinar is next week, I believe.
Okay.
Tara, do you want to just mention that, because we do have pharmacists speak?
Yes, that is next Wednesday, and there should the time, let me see. And then obviously you'll need to double check for your own time zone, but it would be 2 p.m. Eastern time. And Hafa is one of the speakers. So we're lucky enough to have her, as well as a couple of other excellent speakers, speaking on various leadership related topics. It should be really very applicable across the board, I think. So it's really open to anyone early career. I think you could probably sneak on and listen if you're not early career. I'm not sure the rules on that. Greg's nodding, but definitely recommended to anybody that your institutions, or however somebody who's early in their career or may want to get more involved in leadership of any kind. It should be, I think, a really excellent presentation.
Thank you. All right, well, I will not keep anybody any longer. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to our leadership in ISHLT, and also the pharmacy leadership and our members. Together that we make it all up. So not make it up, but comprise the group. So have a great rest of your day, evening, night, morning, afternoon. And I will look forward to collaborating with everybody in the next couple months.